If you want top-tier buds, you need to give your plants exactly what they need at each stage. Come on, let's talk about clones, veg, and bloom today. But before we do, today's video is brought to you by Real Growers Recharge. If you want stronger, healthier plants, if you want bigger roots for better fruits, you gotta check out Real Growers Recharge. It's like an instant compost tea that holds more nutrients at your root zone, breaks those nutrients down, and makes them more plant available, getting more of your nutrients into your plants. Find out more about Recharge over at realgrowers.com. And while you're there, use coupon code Scotty420 to get 20% off your first order. Now let's get back to the show. Come on, Hi-C, let's drop some science.
All right, man, let's get into it. What do I need to know for each stage of my grow? And let's start with clones.
Yeah, I mean, it does take you a little while to figure out clones, or at least it can. And I'll give you a couple really simple things to do.
Okay, so let's start with lighting. Because I know, unless I'm wrong, lighting is a little bit different for each stage of the plant's life.
You have no roots, okay? So you have to just keep these plants, they're breathing through the stomata of their leaves. So you want to keep it very moist, 80, 90% humidity. I've got, in the humidity dome, you should have moisture on the sides. I'll close the tabs in the very beginning on the top, and I'm trying to just get it super moist, and I'm trying to just keep these plants alive, so that they will be able, in a week or so, they'll be able to start growing roots.
But lights specifically, I'm going to have my lights on just like I would in veg, though, right?
Yes, but lower. When we talk about, don't forget, these are tiny little plants, right? They're delicate little plants with no roots. I want to say 150 to 200 ppfd if I'm measuring it. I would just get the AC Infinity $80 clone kit. It comes with everything you need. I turn the lights up to 5 or 6 as a digital, display. It's really easy once you get the right equipment.
So lights on for 18, 24?
I do 24. I do 24 hours a day. I don't think when plants sleep, they send the sugars back down to the roots.
There are no roots.
There are no roots.
Okay, so for a clone, 24 hours is okay, but PPFD, you want your lights to be a little bit less intense.
Yes, you don't want them super intense. Absolutely. These are only half plants.
Okay, and then for nutrients,
sure.
When I'm just starting off with a clone, I'm not going to be pouring nutrients on like I would with a regular plant.
Very low nutrient. Don't forget, they do need to eat. So most of the time you're taking a spray bottle and you're foliar feeding them and just giving them that little bit of nutrient that it takes to thrive. You're also putting hormones in there. There's these rooting hormones, and we want to be able to get those in the plant so it makes a callus and sends signals back down to start making roots.
That's not foliar, or is that foliar?
You do that in foliar, and then you'll also I'll give you an example. I like this product called Clonex. I use when you make the clones, you cut the clones, then you immediately dip them in this gel. The idea behind the gel is the clone, it's usually sucking up moisture from the roots and out the leaves. We want to stop that. We don't want to sucking up a bunch of air. That'll be the death of those clones. So I'll use that has a little bit of that rooting hormone in there. And then I use, the one is called rooting gel, the other is called rooting solution. It's just a very weak nutrient solution that has a little bit of that rooting hormone in there.
Okay, and then I've seen, once you put your clones inside of the solo cups, you also add a little bit of grow dots. Is that necessary? In
the solo cup. So once you pull your plants out of the cloning chamber, kind of a little delicate period right there. Sometimes I'll even open the vent to the top of the cloning chamber. I'll take the top and I'll move it to the side a little bit. I'm getting these plants, instead of just 100% breathing on through their stomatas, to start pulling nutrients through the plant roots. But once they're teens, a teen is when you're taking it out of the cloning chamber, you're putting it in your solo cup, and then you're getting it to, grow 6-8 inches, get it to fill in that solo cup. It starts needing real nutrient. Then it has actual roots. So
that's when you'll add a little bit of grow dots?
That's my hack, man. I add a teaspoon. I'm not going to get rich off anybody. A teaspoon of grow dots, and it just feeds the plant until they're ready to go from the solo cup to their main container.
Okay, and when they're in the teen stage, still 24 hours of light, or do you cut it down to
I'm always learning, and I have switched to 18 hours a day. I have learned that the plant does stop photosynthesizing, and then it has all that time to concentrate and send sugars down to the roots. I want this healthy root mass growing, so yeah, I've been vegging at 18 hours a day.
Okay, and you've got one bonus tip for us for each stage. What's your bonus tip for when you're cloning?
I'm gonna get in trouble. Can I do 2 bonus tips?
Sure, let's do 2 bonus tips.
All right. First one is start with healthy plants. If you've got some sick plant, expect to get a sick clone. Start with only clone healthy plants.
Okay.
And the second one, this took me like 20 years to figure out. Get a $10 heat mat and put it under your clone dome. They're literally $10. You don't have to get the fancy thermostat for it. I plug a heat mat in, and then I put a little bit of extra moisture in the bottom of the clone dome. Not just a little bit, not enough so the plants are totally sitting in water, but just to fill the ridges of the bottom of the clone dome. That gives enough, the little bit of heat on the bottom keeps the clone dome so moist. It just keeps it to where these plants are able to breathe so well the first week where they don't have their roots.
It makes it like a tropical environment.
That's what you want. You need mist on your clone dome. If you don't have mist on your clone dome, you're missing out.
Okay, let's move on to veg and actually clarify from
Sure.
You said when you do your teens, you're going to cut back the light to 18
hours. Yeah.
That's the same for veg, right? 18 hours of light?
Yep. And what we're doing is during those 18 hours of light on, we are photosynthesizing. We are sucking water and nutrient up from the bottom. We are bringing it to the leaves where they are baking it into some sugar, and they are making that as plant material. So they're photosynthesizing. They're building themselves with light.
So they need that extra light.
Yes. So it's always going one direction. So when we turn the light off, all of a sudden there's nothing for the plants to do. So they say, you know what? Hey, let's take care of those roots down there. Let's send a little bit of the nutrient down to those roots, make sure that they've got everything they need to expand, because when the lights turn back on again, they got to start delivering us nutrient, man.
So 18 hours on, 6 hours off during veg. And then PPFD, you said around 100, 150 for the clones. What am I looking for PPFD?
Strong. We're trying to max these out now. These are strong plants. Hopefully we've grown them a full solo cup full of roots, and we want to start really, you don't want to do it immediately, but you put them in, I put them in, I'll raise the lights up, and I'll go from maybe 350 PPFD. And within a couple days, I'm down to 600, or I'm up to 600 PPFD. That's about as much as I would do without CO2. Mm-hmm. And then if I have CO2, I will dial it up to 900 ppfd. It lights the energy. It is ripping the carbon out of the air and making sugar out of it, making plant material out of it. So the more light, as long as I get the more CO2, the better.
All right. And then nutrients in veg are a little bit different than what you're looking for in bloom. What do I want to focus on for nutrients while my plants are in veg?
Just plenty of nitrogen. Nitrogen is going to feed those chloroplasts, which are going to work with the light to photosynthesize. Green. You want a nice, big, healthy green plant. So you want the first number. It's NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. You want that first number to be a lot higher in veg.
Okay, so extra nitrogen is going to get me leafy green plant growth.
Yep.
Help develop those leaves. Those are the solar
panels. Yeah, those are the solar. It's actually the factory. I mean, it's not only solar panels. It's the energy. They are baking it right there. They're taking those sugars, baking them, and turning it into plant sugar, and then redistributing it all around to grow.
All right, so in veg, we're going to go 18 hours of light on, 6 hours off.
Yep.
We're going to shoot for about 600 ppfd if we're at ambient CO2.
Yep.
You said how much if you got extra CO2?
Dial it up to 900.
Okay.
Yeah, you can dial it up to 900, and it depends how much CO2 you have, but that's about as high performance as I go.
All right, and then for nutrients, we want a little bit more nitrogen.
Yep, high first number.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you've got a bonus tip for us in veg as well.
Shape your plants. This is the time that you want to shape your plants, whether you're doing, I like bamboo stakes because I can turn the plants all around. A lot of people will feed them into a trellis, but the idea is most of these cannabis plants are grown, they have an apical meristem. They have some giant top cola bud.
They just want to shoot straight up.
Yep, and that looks great. Don't forget, they're supposed to catch pollen.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the best way you're going to do that is by, growing one giant bud. So you can do that, but wouldn't you rather have 6 or 7 pretty darn big colas instead? That apical meristem is giant because all the nutrient is going straight up to the top, and then it's getting all the light. So if you cut that, and now what's it going to do with all that nutrient? It goes, well, where's the top? Oh, there's 6 tops here. Well, let me distribute it evenly. So you end up getting many more really nice big buds. And if you have that one big cola, that apical meristem, you are putting all your eggs in that one basket. And when you have a giant cola, what can happen? Bud molds. That's what I'm really thinking about. And you just got all that energy into that one giant bud. When you chop that apical meristem, that giant top off, the plant wants to send nutrients up to that top, and it can say, hey, there's nothing here. Well, where is it? There's 5 or 6 other tops over there, and you just get 5 or 6. You'll get nice buds. Don't forget the light is responsible for photosynthesis. Plenty of light, plenty of CO2, plenty of water and nutrients. You'll get 5 or 6 nice big buds instead of that one.
Okay, so why do you want to do the training in veg rather than in bloom?
Because you're trying to build a strong plant structure, I guess. This is where the plant's growing. That's what all that nitrogen is for plant growth. So you can take, this is when it's exploding with growth. So if you cut the center out of it, in bloom, you just cut your biggest bud off.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, if you cut the center out of it in fairly early veg, and you can start this early, it starts by topping. You'll top the plant, and it'll make it more bushy on the sides, and then I cut the top out of it. And you'll be really surprised to see what these little tiny branches will grow into. Hey, one last bonus tip is cut the bottom larf off, just the bottom 6 inches or whatever. No, it's not going to get any light. It's going to rob energy. It's the first thing that bugs will get to because it's not in the light. So just take that stuff off. It's only going to rob your yield.
So training includes taking some off of the top and taking some off of the bottom.
Yeah, sometimes they'll call it lollipopping. That's when you take a lot off. I just take the bottom 6 inches off or something like that. Nothing crazy.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's talk about bloom now.
Yes.
What do I need to know when it comes to lights in bloom? I know that in veg, 18 hours, 6 off. In bloom, I'm turning my lights down.
12. You're going to
12,
grow.
12.
And think about what happens in the summer. It's nice long days. You're growing these giant plants. And then what happens in late fall? Plant's going to send us cannabis is an annual, so it's going to die. So it starts pushing out giant buds and it makes them sticky so they can attract pollen. That's the idea behind it.
Okay, so in fall, the days get shorter. So by cutting our lights down in hours, it tricks the plant into thinking the days are shorter?
It does, but what happens when we talk about PPFD or when we talk about DLI, it's the total light, amount of light that has fallen on the plant in a day.
I just cut from 18 to 12. That's a lot less light power.
Yep, so you got to dial your lights up. So that's why, if you're at 600 in veg, I'll dial my lights up to 900 in flower, at least.
Okay, so I cut down a third of my light hours. I want to slowly increase my light energy.
Yes, you dial up that light energy. That's the important thing to know, because if you cut your light by a third, well, that's right when you're supposed to be giving it the most amount of light to get those big giant blooms, right?
Gotcha. Okay, so cut my light down to 12.
Yep.
Trick it to go into bloom.
Yep.
Dial up my PPFD a little bit.
Yep, of light. And then you want to change your nutrient. That would be the second thing I would tell you.
Okay.
Is all that nitrogen is really good for vegetative growth, for busting, for growing giant leaves.
I don't want big leaves in bloom.
We don't want super leafy bud. We want hard flowers, right? We want hard nug. So we want to lower the nitrogen. You still need nitrogen, okay? You definitely do. If you don't have nitrogen, your plants aren't going to be green. But you need lower nitrogen, and you need to keep the phosphorus and potassium pretty steady.
Okay, so keep the P and the K where it was at, but lower the amount of nitrogen that I'm feeding.
Yep, and that's why in the dots, the nitrogen run out in the first 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. And then it becomes, I shouldn't say they run out, the spike runs out, and then it becomes a nice balanced bloom formula.
Gotcha. Okay, so lights 12-12, increase the ppfd, drop the nitrogen, keep the P and K going, and then what's a bonus tip for once my flowers are in bloom?
I'll give you one, man. Lower your temperature. The last couple, and I always talk about environment being huge. Man, there's some terpenes that volatilize off in the low 70s Fahrenheit.
Those trichomes, once they start developing.
Yes, you want to keep them. Those are, little balls that have terpenes and cannabinoids in them. And some of those terpenes start to degrade at very low temperatures. So, yeah, if you have I've had some friends that have run their grows at 85, in the 80s, they will get bud. A lot of times it's, stuck to the ceiling because they've grown so big, but it's not the best quality. The terpenes are volatilizing off. When you have those temperatures, it's very easy, or it's just science that some terpenes are going to volatilize off. So by turning your temperature down, yes, you're slowing the metabolism of the plant down, the photosynthesis of the plant. The last week, I'm not trying to build, I guess sometimes the buds do bulk up, but I'd rather have frosty weed than a little bit more plant material. Yeah, so I turn, most of the cannabinoids and most of the trichomes are developed, and I'm trying to keep the ones that are developed from volatilizing off.
Okay, so for the last week before I'm going to harvest, keep those trichomes intact. When you say turn the temperature down, from what to what?
I try to keep it in the low 70s to high 60s. If I can, I usually turn my thermostat down to about 68. It doesn't really get to 68 in the room, really, but low, very low 70s. And you're welcome to Google it. There are terpenes that start volatilizing off in the low 70-degree Fahrenheit range.
So even if you do get to the low 75 or low 70s, you're still going to have a little bit of volatilization?
I mean, theoretically. I imagine you're always going to have a little bit of volatilization, but I noticed when growers control the temperature in the last half of flowering, especially late in flowering, it grows danker weed. Hey, but those are just my top tips for each stage of growing. But did I miss something? Come on, let me know in the comments. And if you dug this video, come on, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, share and talk about this video with another grower you know. And check out the other videos YouTube's recommending. I think you like them.